See. Thank you very kindly for it. This seems a especially good time to discuss the problem of mental stress. For the last 2 weeks, the newspapers have been filled with causes for anxiety. Nations that hardly seem big enough to take care of themselves have an irresistent impulse to conquer the world. And now very small countries with nuclear weapons become a hazard to greater powers. So in all of this situation, the average person living under these conditions is almost certain to develop a very good form and an intense form of political stress. Now, political stress is a form of mental stress. Mental because it involves irrational procedure. The individual thinks about what is happening. He adds 2 and 2 together and hopes that he gets the 4. He's doing all kinds of things in his own life to variously insulate him against the pressures of the times. The ugly image of war rises on the horizon, and people look back upon a century, almost one complete war, and we realize that we are in very perilous times, and that for some reason, difficult to explain, nature does not permit us to forget our own weaknesses even while we are longing to develop our strength. The problem of war and stress brings to us again another phase of life. Stress is a mental process. The individual is rationalizing, but perhaps his rationalizations are irrational. But he is certainly trying to think a way to get out of his problem. He is beginning to look around him in the world and see all kinds of indications of trouble. He is beginning to recognize for the first time perhaps in historic periods that he is definitely involved in something that he is definitely responsible for. These things are not accidents or incidents. They are not something sent by heaven to virtuous people to make them happy. We are convinced more and more that there is a just universe, and that if we're in trouble it's because of ourselves. We know this. We recognize it. If we doubt it, we see it around us every day. And yet with all this evidence, there seems to be a kind of paralysis. No one seems to know what to do about anything. The reason being, in nearly every solution that has been offered, there is a strong stratum of selfishness. Self-interest dominates all solutions, and while self-emphasis does dominate, there will be no solution. So we are confronted with a problem that may drift into the next century and may explode at almost any time in the next 10 years. A problem in which our own life and the way we've lived it is catching up with us. We don't like to think of it because many people, how we might point out, are not directly responsible. The individual of 80 or 70 years is not responsible for the fact that the Iranians are looking for new oil fields. These people are not responsible for Vietnam or any of those types of problems. They were grown up and growing old before these things even happened. Yet they are caught up in the same misery. And it seems as though the stress is being spread over the entire face of the living population of the earth. And everyone, of course, either blames themselves or blames someone else. The tendency is to blame someone else. And in many cases, there is no alternative. As persons, we were not in certain localities and therefore could not be held as personally responsible. But as persons, we were also part of motions. We were giving in to the same causes. We were paying a tribute to the same ideas as those which caused these difficulties. We were very happy to profit from certain consequences of war, but we did not want the war. We were interested in profiting by the various political changes that occur. We are interested in profiting by the new inventions which ensure greater strength in military matters. We are very anxious for the defense, but we do not want to be blamed for the offense. We do not wish to be held responsible, but we would like to be held rewardable if the thing goes through. Well, the pattern is impossible. It simply cannot happen. We have got to face the facts. Now, when we start out in life as small children in a reasonable family, we start in usually with a considerable amount of self-pity. The small child does not understand why it should ever be punished. It does not realize that there's a necessity for discipline. It is simply a little creature with all arms and legs that wants to do what it pleases. And if it gets spanked for some mistake that it makes, it doesn't even rationalize the problem, breaks into tears, everyone gets excited, and finally everyone forgives the child who was wrong in the first place. These things are the way it is in a family. Now, the earth is a big house, and this is the family. And in this family that we have here today, who is to say what is justice? Lots of people feel that a God who loves us should forgive us, that he should send a Messiah long before the blow falls. The little child in the family who makes a mistake is quite certain that it should be forgiven, and in most cases in a short time it is forgiven. There is no grievance held. But everywhere we find the tendency of the individual and the collective to accept punishment as unjust, something that should never have happened to them. It was all right for some other nation to be caught in a difficulty, but we are above these things. And so everybody being above everything, things go the way they do now, and we are in great trouble. Now the troubles start upon us and then move in on us. We are today difficult to handle as people. We are emotional, upset, discontented, in a state of fear and remorse or anticipation. The individual is remembering all the little mistakes he made, and nations are forgetting or trying to forget some of the big ones they made. But in all cases, the thing that doesn't work is a reminder of something. It is a reminder of a process that was not right, or a concept that was not right. And according to the good book, and we have no better authority at the moment, all things that are to come out well must have an honest beginning. We must be moved by right motives. We must follow constructive ideas, and we must maintain integrity and honesty in our relations with each other. Well, if we look for a civilization that started that way, we'll have a very hard time finding one. For nearly all progress has been one form of warfare or militarism on top of another. There's been no real definite effort to be kind to someone we don't like, or to love to have other people have money that we wish we had. All these things are beyond our understanding, and we are assuming, of course, that a God somewhere understands us, but doesn't understand the other side of the question. So we are always on the misunderstood side or something. Now, the question arises among a good many Christian people with whom I've been discussing some of these matters, is how can and why does a benevolent deity permit a militarism such as we have today? Well, we can have the same thing when someone says about the neighbor, I wonder why they forbid their small son to go out under the trees at night and smoke pot. They don't allow it, it happens. And they cannot resist the pressure of the child's determination to do what it wills, regardless of consequences. So the parent says, no, you shouldn't. The child says, yes, I will. And when they get too tense, the child walks out and goes where it can smoke in peace, and after a few years is buried with a number of his friends. The picture is the same, always in the same direction. The struggle against order, law and order, and against that, appetite and ambition. So we have the thing today. The world of the Middle East is just a big family, squabbling as families do, and always looking for some way to make an advantage out of the squabble. Everyone knows exactly what is happening. They know what is happening. There's no doubt in the world that these people know just as much about the fallacy of war as we do. But between them and us and the fallacy is the possibility of temporary gain and a larger price for crude oil. So things go on as they were. And the universe as we know it, the human universe, is composed of people who are willing to compromise principles in order to gain profits of some kind for themselves. Now, if this happens in the family, there might be some excitement. They'll say something should be done to punish these juvenile delinquents. Well, nature doesn't come down like Simon Legree with a horsewhip. Nature is constantly compensating the creatures which it has brought forth. Compensation means to be paid in like, to be paid in the currency of the cause and the deed. And the compensation for a misdeed must necessarily be unpleasant. You cannot do what is wrong and be rewarded for it by what is right. You have to go through the problems of the consequences of your own mistakes. The deity that we understand and believe in is not a visible old gentleman sitting upon the clouds. He's not going to wag his finger at us and tell us we are being bad. But nature will work through its laws and rules which are immutable. And these laws are absolute justice. And absolute justice, in the last analysis, is the highest form of love. When we do what is right and maintain it, the guardian powers of life reward us. When we voluntarily and intentionally do what is wrong, simply because it is easier or more profitable, the gods of laws and orders and of natures and stars do not reward us with a happy life. So we earn what we hope to have. And if we hope to have wealth, we have it, but we have the troubles that come with it. And we will have these troubles as long as we live the way we do now. So we have another crisis. Well, is it going to break out into war? Are there going to be more great struggles? Are we going to have brother against brother? Are we going to have God fighting against God, so to say? Are we going to have more tragedies? It's almost impossible to imagine tragedies greater than those we've already had. And in the last century, presumably the most enlightened century of all time, we had the worst wars of all time. We had the greatest destructions that have ever been known on the planet. Why? Not because God didn't love us, not because the universe was against us, not because of the terrible pressures of laws that we can't understand and never will understand, simply rewards for actions we do understand and should do something about. We are getting exactly what we deserve. Now that means, of course, that it looks as though those who don't deserve are getting punished also. And this looks very difficult. It seems also difficult to us when we see a family consisting of a mother, father, and one child, possibly illegitimate, that the child has to go through the suffering that it does not deserve because of the mistakes or indifferences of the parents. And it looks as though good people all over the earth are being wounded and destroyed by bad people, and that this goes on and on and on. But there's a little more to it than shows on the surface. In nature there are no elderly gods like Odin with one eye walking the earth with his iron-bound staff. The laws of nature operate through their own structures of law. And the structures are very exact. The structure says definitely, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. Now this sounds very ferocious perhaps, but actually it is absolutely just. And justice is the only basis of security anywhere in nature. If laws are not honest and are not honestly kept, then we have no security. Never will have. But if we do manage gradually to increase in our valid use and understanding of laws, then we are rewarded openly. Things go much better. So we have not an elderly gentleman as the grandfather of the family. We have a universal pattern of realities which has been given to us so that we may build a life suitable to our own needs. Now, among those who are in trouble at the moment, we are reminded again, of course, of the thought in the Bible that many may fall on the right and left hand, but the just man shall not be moved. So what we have to realize is that somehow the person who doesn't deserve it isn't going to get it. The individual who deserves something better will get something better. And everywhere along the way, the division between the wheat and the chaff is real. That we are not going to be punished for being right. We are going to be chastised moderately, usually, for being mistaken. And if that mistake is impelled by covetousness or personal destructive ambition, then the penalty gets heavier. But the fact of the matter remains, it is that we are rewarded for being right, and the right person is protected. Now, how does the right person get to be protected? Well, being the right person isn't a quick job. Being a right person isn't going to be one who goes to bed on Saturday night a mistaken person and wakes up Sunday morning a right person. It's not going to be like that. Neither of joining a religious orders or reading the scriptures is going to do it. Nothing that we talk about, nothing that we discuss or rationalize will do it. The only way that we can be a right person is to be one. And to be a right person in nature means to keep the rules of the game. Regardless of how we feel about it, if we do what is right, we come under the protection of those powers that guide all things. So always in every generation, in every cycle of life, there are small groups who keep the rules. And those are the small groups which we associate with progress. We associate those small groups with the great religions of the world, with the great philosophies, with the great founders of idealistic sciences, the artists, the musicians, all who have devoted their lives to beauty and truth and wisdom. They, in a way, are the ones who are the salt of the earth. Now, sometimes it happens that some of these people have all these characteristics, these loves of things, and still they're not honest. Therefore, there are many forms of achievement which are not rewarded as we should expect them to be. But it's not because of a fallacy in nature. It is because the achievement was not achieved the way we thought it was, or we did not understand the meaning of the lesson that we were being taught to learn. In this 20th century, we have a lot of lessons. We have lessons on almost every subject dealing with human relationships. We have even lessons concerning interstellar space. We have relationships and lessons in the advancement of industries. We have lessons in the advancement of health. All these things are in patterns, and we are placed as never before in the presence of the greatest opportunity that a form of life has ever known, and the greatest responsibility that accompanies that opportunity. To make most of the opportunity, we must accept the responsibility. And to expect the responsibility means to live in harmony with the laws which protect us against the shortcomings of ourselves and each other. This is therefore part of the problem of stress in a political system or in the mental level. The mind is a great excuser, justifier, evader. The mind can talk us into anything and out of anything we wish to allow it to do, and yet nothing that the mind does any more than what the earth does can break a rule without breaking harmony. The mind is to be used in a certain way. The mind is given to us to find the truth. When we use it for any other purpose, we get into trouble. When you try to use a skillful thought as an escape from a virtuous action, we are in serious trouble. The mind must be used as it was intended to be used. If the mind is converted to selfishness, it will give us one dynamic empire after another, each one of which will fall in ashes and decay. Every time we use the mind selfishly, we are in more trouble. And yet it seems to us usually that the mind was given to us for that reason, to make us have trouble. We feel sometimes as though the trouble is part of some tyranny in space, that this mind is being used definitely and definitely to hurt us, that it makes us do what is wrong whether we want to or not. All this, of course, is entirely untrue. The mind was never taught to do us any harm. The mind was never taught to do what is wrong. The mind is therefore an instrument of discovery. The mind is like a book to be read. It is like a good strong axe to be used. The mind is something that can help us to find reality, but it is not intended for it to become a means of evading the results of our own actions. When we start to use the thought to get out of difficulty, then we have one kind of mistake or false thinking of another. We have an evasion or an avoidance. We have the mind misused. The moment the mind tries to get us out of a discipline which we should be in, the mind doubles the dose. The moment we do not use the corrective properly, the corrective becomes worse. Now this does not mean that God is not in his heavens or truth does not run the planet. It means that the individual creatures on the planet either keep the rules or break them. It is very, very simple. There is never going to be a time now or any other time when the universal law will compromise itself or be compromised in any way permanently by a judgment or a false value set up by one of its creatures. We are never going to get out of the consequences of our own mistakes unless we outgrow them. We've got to see where we are wrong and why we are wrong. And then when we do that, the prodigal son comes home. And the idea that this is done to hurt us, or that we live in an atheistic universe, there being only two decisions possible. One, that God is not aware of what we're doing or may not exist, or that God is not good. And consequently, he's creating systems to toady to him, to make him appear to be a ruler when he is actually a victim of the conspiracy of mortals. So on this occasion, where we are facing another one of these emergencies, and there are prospects that they may continue on into the next century, then what are we doing about it? Are we really doing anything about it? Have we done anything to put God back into science? And when I say God, I don't mean the worship of God. I mean the living of the divine life as it was ordained. There are rules of how to live. Until we keep those rules of how to live, we will suffer and die. Are we really seeking those rules? Or are we seeking ways, as we always have, for evading them, avoiding them, compromising them, or escaping their consequences? Is it true that we are in music, or doing the best we can to discover the music of the spheres? Are we seeking universal harmony, or are we seeking nothing more or less than an excitement to take our minds off of our own mistakes? It's what we call hot music, nothing but part of the fumes of a greater heat coming up from below. That's a great, great question. Now also we have to say, what about business? Yes, business is important. It is important. We have a term for a certain kind of business called monkey business, and that's what we have. We have not even the wisdom of the anthropoid ape or the Pithecanthus erectus. We just have ordinary monkey wisdom. Monkey wisdom which doesn't know what it is doing and never has. Wisdom which attempts to justify the fact that when three foolish men get together and make a law, that law becomes an eternal truth. It doesn't. If everyone on earth voted for the same thing and that thing was wrong, it would still be an untrue vote and it would still be an imaginary solution. Things have to fulfill themselves. The deity that rules all things is infinite wisdom and infinite love. Infinite wisdom shows the way, and infinite love shows the patience of the infinite in its constant relationship with its own creations. There is no intention on nature, part of nature, to be cruel. There is no intention or need for nature to cast great monuments of fire into space. There is no need for wars, for such compromises as bankruptcies, plagues, earthquakes. These things are not cosmic necessities. They are the consequences of broken rules, laws that have been mistakenly interpreted, or most of all perhaps, have been passed on from generation to generation with children in school and on and up, simply to make us understand the fact that we are in this world for one purpose only, to get as much fun out of it as we can, to get as much money out of it as we can, and to get out of it before the payments become due. This is a very grave problem. So now, here we are. Here we are facing into the problem of mental stress. We are going to always be in stress with ourselves, our children, our neighbors, and everyone else, unless we have a clear understanding of the proper basis of relationships. The easiest way to find the basis of these relationships, fortunately or unfortunately, depending upon your opinions, is through the basis of the great religions and philosophies of the world. There's no probability that science will ever give us those solutions, because science isn't interested in it. A scientist might rise and do it, but science won't. There must be a scientist who outgrows science. So we have to look elsewhere. But we have to look somewhere where skills and achievements and advancements lead always to the public good. Now, I saw a book a few days ago that someone handed me to look at, written quite a ways back in the 30s somewhere, on the development of the computer and television and this type of thing. And the book was written by somebody who was pretty insightful and pretty well described exactly the mess that these discoveries have caused. That instead of these wonderful discoveries leading to new advancements, knowledge and understanding, more world peace, more equality, more jobs, more kindness between nations, more tolerance between religions, instead of these desirable ends, all we're getting out of it is more noise and more crime. So this means that we are not able to take on even an advancement without abusing it. Everything that we get now has to be termed in measures of dollars. If we can make $2 grow where one grew before, then we consider ourselves very progressive. But in the truth of the matter, in the great oars of space, it makes no difference whether $1 grows into 2 or 1 into 10. The whole pattern is one of integrity, and when every name we call it, anything that breaks those integrities is in serious trouble. And so are we, as long as we continue to break them. And we are beginning to realize now that television is getting us into trouble. We realize that what was hoped would be a great step forward in education has now become a great step forward in the propaganda of crime and degeneracy. We know definitely that the use of television and computerism to help us to advance the common state of man is of very little consideration. Even where these are public instruments, they are exploited for the benefit of private business. So all this shows the way a thing is going. And it also shows why, at this particular moment, each individual has a job on his hands. He's got to convert himself to the kind of world he lives in, know why he's in it, and know how to get out of it. Now, the getting out of this world doesn't mean suicide. It doesn't mean becoming a hopeless addict to various drugs or bad habits. It means a solution. We are in a mess. We are definitely voting for a mess whenever a vote comes up. Whenever we buy something, we are buying a mess. Whenever we plan a career, we are planning to fit into the mess. And our retirement is what we hope to be, will be a retirement out of the mess, but actually into private or public facilities which will charge us thoroughly to take care of our closing years. Everywhere we go, the same problems are. Now, you can look around, you may find occasionally, will find occasionally, someone who is understanding of these things. But for the great majority, it's a case of setting down and using the mind to solve the problems of daily living. It is up to the mind to give us the answers we have to have. And one of the answers that we get first of all when we think it that way is the answer of integrity. The first thing we've got to find out is what is the honesty of the matter. then we have to say to ourselves, and prove it by careful thought and research, that the good man is not punished for the sins of the evil ones. There is no way that evil can contaminate us unless we are subject to contamination because of weakness in our own natures. If we are basically selfish, there will be always something that can create a mood of selfishness. If we are constantly bewildering in a world of antagonisms, of jealousies, and of competition, as long as these factors are strong in our own minds, we will have these problems. That is why in the old days wisdom was separated widely from wealth. In Greece and Egypt and India and those ancient countries, wealth was not a distinction. Some were born wealthy, some gained it, and some won it by war, but it was not essentially an achievement. War was one way of controlling the bodies of things, but wisdom was the way of unfolding the inner life of things, the bestowal of integrities upon the patterns of living. Therefore, we were very definitely involved in the problem of gaining freedom from the stress of our own addictions. The individual who has been smoking heavily of cigarettes for 25 years has trouble breaking away. He gets headaches, he gets sick, he takes the cure, he breaks down, he comes back to smoke again, he gets another refund and keeps on going until either he quits or the throat cancer takes him out. Now this is the same way with civilization. We have war after war, revolution after revolution. Great industrial institutions rise and fall. The banking system builds tremendously and then collapses. Everything we do that is purely material and self-centered ends in trouble. There is no way of making mistakes permanent and valuable. They are always impermanent and worthless. So we come to the point where we have to try to find out what to do about them. And one of the things we have to do about them is go right back to our own childhood. We will assume that nature was a kindly parent, wiser and more loving than any else. Nature gave us all a chance to come into this world. The moment we get out of that unseen world, we move from the invisible to the invisible and become a part of the life of physical embodied creatures. The child that is the unborn is a strange and wonderful thing. The moment it is born into this world, it is a little crying creature waiting for us to take care of it, and in fact giving us the greatest affection, love, and vitality that we can ever know. But this coming into embodiment is integrity coming into life. It is the reality of things impressing themselves upon living creatures. If a virtue becomes embodied, the person who has it is called virtuous. And this virtue is not just simply a mental attitude. It is not a compensation for being unselfish when you really want to be rich. Not at all. It is the fact that you have outgrown a fallacy. You have outgrown something that was ultimately going to kill you and have chosen rather that which will ultimately bring you to eternal life. And nature, that is nature's love. Nature's love is to see you grow. And your idea, for most part, in the material world, is to resist growth in every way possible because it interferes with immediate profit or social standing. Yet this social standing and this profit vanishes away, and it becomes part of a great lost world which can never be restored. We are gradually reaching the point now where a decision is inevitable. We are going to have to decide what constitutes a good life. That we can use almost any invention that we have for the benefit of all concerned if we take selfishness and self-interest out of it. We can grow beautifully in all the ways that we ought to grow if we stop thinking of growth merely as wealth. The individual who believes that growth is getting into a higher bracket of public office is a mistaken person. He is mistaken the reason for himself. That doesn't mean he couldn't have a higher office, but would have to be elected for a different motive, for a different reason. He would be elected because of what he could give and not for what he could get. and those who put him in would be able to know that they were performing a personally virtuous act rather than merely advancing their own paycheck. So everywhere along, nature in its kindness, it gives us the wisdom and love that belongs to its own nature. The world we live in is a world that is filled with divine love. Love for the littlest thing that exists. Love for the mote and the sunbeam. Love for all the little creatures of nature. All the things that we are destroying with the abuse of the ecological situations. The world we live in was primarily a world of friendship, of getting along together. The lion and the lamb sitting down together in solving the problems of life. This world was a garden until we subdivided it and began to think of it in terms of profit by the acre. The moment we became mercenary, the garden faded away. And we had continents with various colored backgrounds on maps. And we had these map countries always fighting each other. There was never can be and never will be anyone who can own the earth or control it or dominate it. It belongs to the great system of worlds to which we all belong. It is our step upward into something else. If we try to destroy it, we destroy the very stairs upon which we have to climb. So it's gradually we're going to have to get over this. It has now been estimated, in one paper noticed long ago, that 1/3 world war mother, one of the becomes a victim of migration, one in 3 generations can contribute over 400 new members to the population. In other words, gradually population is increasing at its incredible rate, a rate which will mean that in a very few years there will be no space for them. It can't be. And someone says, well, it's pretty obvious that God made a mistake on that one. No, man made the mistake. God set this thing up so that every phase of it is perfectly in harmony and perfectly proper. And the way it was developed and established in the first place, it could go on for 1,000,000 years without any definite danger to anything that inhabits it. But in a few thousand years, we have made it a madhouse and a slaughterhouse. And there's where the thinking has to change. So we come now to our present day. And we come to consider the situations that we are going to face when we begin to think in terms of the effect of stress upon mind. Stress upon mind means gradually discouragement, fear, anxiety. It begins to doubt the will and goodness of providence, doubt the kindness of your own friends, doubt the integrity of your own family. Little by little, stress creates evil. If it is not there, it will be suspected. If it is there, it will be exaggerated. And little by little, the planet will become a mass of isolated individuals, each frightened of all others. Every animal afraid that it will be eaten for meat. Every plant that will be ground up to something. Every elephant that will be killed for ivory. And every human being will be worked to death to the advancement of the fortunes of a few. All these things are coming unless somebody does something about it. And the place to where it should be done is where it began in the first place, in the Garden of Eden. It should have been there. It should be right now, in the lives and hopes and dreams of moderate-minded people who still believe in something worthwhile and are still willing to live a doctrine or a religion that inspires without a conspiracy. We need this and we get it. And right now it's coming. Everywhere groups are coming into existence. Religions are coming to be reborn that were ignored for years. The books are being written now that would not be allowed on a press 25 years ago. Everywhere man is searching for something. And he is searching usually, up now, in the mysterious. He is searching somewhere in the codes of yoga, or Vedanta, or Kabbalah, or something. Mysticism. All these types of things, because materialism has failed utterly. Now those who are still struggling desperately to maintain materialism are becoming fewer all the time and are dying off one by one. The casualty rate among prominent agnostics and atheists has been very heavy in the last 25 years. They're just disappearing. They cannot survive because they contribute nothing except more pain to the suffering. They don't give anything of themselves that is worth anything. Nothing but a bitter expose of their own corruption. So today they have more and more coming in search of a better way of life. And in this search, they are going more and more to the great systems of religion and ethics. They are not so interested now in sectarianism. They are interested in the experience of a divine plan in which all things rest in the integrity of an eternal power. Rest in the integrity of an absolute truth. And also that this universe is so geared, so constructed, and so put together that in proper care it can go forever. It can go on to long forms of life that don't even exist here now. It can go on into the infinite as a step in the development of a great unfolding integrity. If we abuse it, we destroy it and ourselves with it. But when I say destroy, I don't mean that the individual can actually eliminate himself. The only thing he can destroy is the evil self in himself. And the evil self, if it largely predominates him, doesn't leave much when it's taken away. It doesn't leave a happy, healthy creature. It leaves something frightened to death because of its own infirmities and mistakes. So the idealist has to start from the ground and build up again. To build into the values he knows are right. And by building into them, sharing in them. So every sincere, simple person who wants to be on the right track and wants to get where he should get has to begin to think of the real values of life. And he will have to work with the stress inside himself, because this stress is going to determine much. Stress is going to be the fight between Joe, the man looking for a fortune, and Joe, the man looking for love and respect. He's going to find him without struggling against the very forces not long ago he believed to be realities. We're going to find him more and more interested in simple, common, everyday kindnesses. We find that there is a love that tells more than wisdom can ever tell. And that in working together with humanity for the advancement of the common good, we find the real job for which we were intended. The individual who works for himself alone is a pretty lonesome character. But the individual who works with others and with himself to the service of others beyond his own need, they're a pretty wise person. So we think now more and more of this problem of tension as the struggle of the individual against the pressures of a corrupted, neurotic society. We see it becoming worse all the time. We see the school systems collapsing. We see the utilities failing. We see nations who are perfectly willing to go to war because they want a few cents on oil. We find countries breaking off into fragments so small that they can't politically exist. Everything done according to tremendous urges of selfishness and a few despots who are determined to exploit the errors of the common people. So this proposition we see. But what can we do about it? Well, we can do one thing. And if enough people can do that, we will be going somewhere. The one thing is the individual can convert himself. He can find in his own experience a source for the realization of the victory of good over evil, of eternity over time, and of spirit over matter. He can experience every day that he lives in an unfolding universe which has always been there, but he didn't see until he opened his own eyes. No one else can open his eyes for him. All the schools in the world can't open them, because their eyes are being opened only by dedication, by desperate statement of conviction, by a determination to achieve to a higher degree of individual integrity. The individual who takes a quiet obligation in his own heart and in his own mind and keeps that obligation is already an immortal creature. He is consciously immortal. He was always immortal, but he didn't know it. But when he keeps the rules, he becomes aware of his own conscious immortality, and in so doing lays the program for ages to come of growth, unfoldment, and dedication. The moment selfishness dies, the soul is released. The moment avarice and conflict and chicanery are overcome, the inner life of the individual can express itself. The inner life of man is essentially a soul power, a power that contains within itself the infinite blessing of deity and the infinite strength to accomplish all that is necessary for the perfection and revelation of itself. There is nothing lacking in the universe. Deity has not bestowed its preciousness upon one sect, upon one group, one race, or one family. It has given of itself to one who is true, anyone, slave or superior, who is dedicated to truth, dwells in the spirit of wisdom and in peace with the inner life. This peace with the inner life is the end of stress. It is the only end that stress can come to. There are no ways that it can be anything else except peace. And peace is not stagnation. It is a new experience of what is important and what counts. Peace is a sudden realization that that which inwardly brings joy to the soul, it brings fulfillment to the life. Peace is therefore a gentleness with space, being a part of a great universal purpose, and that in that great purpose there is room for all to grow and all happiness to be achieved. This purpose is not responsible for war, yet man is responsible for war. We are all responsible for the sins we suffer from, and the only remedy is to cure them in ourselves. And the only way now, apparently, that the infinite power has found a way to cure us is to make these mistakes so terrible that we can't endure them. That doesn't mean that the powers that be make them terrible to destroy us, but makes them terrible to awaken us to the need that is within our own consciousness. Man has a purpose that is beyond the boundaries of time and space as we know it. Man has a purpose somewhere out there, into the infinite world of creation and of good. It is part of a great redeeming life that moves through space and time to the fulfillment of its own purpose. And somewhere beyond the stars, and beyond the light, and beyond the mysteries of time and space, is a mysterious purpose, a purpose which we are so far ahead of us that we don't know what it is, but towards which we work. And every step in the right direction is a release from limitation and a participation in the next step of this great revelation. Every backsliding is a mistake, binding us back again to a world that has done nothing but hurt us from the beginning of time. Sin is therefore the individual feeling incapable of growth. Sin is to assume that growth is evil, that progress is wrong, and that physical things which hurt each other are right. This is not possible. The final thing, that peace is right, means that we must find peace. And the individual, to find peace, must discover it in the only place where, as a person, he can discover it, and that is in the quietude of his own soul. Therefore, one nice little thing that everyone can do is have a new friendship, a friendship with his own soul, that he can sit down quietly of occasion and have little chats with this power within himself, a power which wants him to overlook the shortcomings of his relatives and his friends, get over all the evil thoughts he has about anything, and realize, finally, that all things are fulfilling the law of their own purpose, and that the best he can do is to discover the beauty of that purpose and that law, live according to it, and if opportunity arises, share it with someone else. There is no reason why this journey through life should just be one war after another. There may be wars and rumors of war, but the just person sees through them, knows what they are, and realizes that out of this wanderings in the wilderness, the human soul will come ultimately and finally to the promised land, which is its proper home. When we realize that, we know exactly why we're here. And when we know why we're here, we also have the peace of mind. We doesn't worry anymore what Iraq does to Iran. These things will be for them to decide, and they will be rewarded or punished according to the measure of their integrity. The purpose that we have is to remember that we mustn't think of these things in terms of other people getting away with being bad, while we have to suffer for being good. This is not it. No one ever suffered from being good. They suffer from a false sense of goodness. They fall usually from a goodness which is frustrated selfishness. And while that remains, that isn't the answer. But there's no reason why those who have understanding and insight cannot live a good and enlightened life in the very world we're in. And that in this case, that will reduce tension and reduce stress. Stress is a sense of discontent, of disconcertion. Stress as we know it is a sense of unfairness. We don't feel stress about the punishment for crime if it is legitimate. But when the innocent are punished for the guilty, then we feel stress. We feel remorse. We think there's something wrong in the plan of things. But what we have not learned is that no one yet has been punished for being right. Many are punished trying to be right. Many have had to go to give up a great many things that other people believe necessary in order to gain right. But I've known several who, having given away all of this world's goods, have retired into the simple life of serving others in some gentle capacity. I know a man back east who, after the Depression of 1929, lost practically all of a vast fortune, including the family fortune. He could have started over again. He could have been a millionaire again, but he didn't. He took the crumbling remains of what was left, very little, and went out and went into an African Indian reservation and settled down there to help these people to gain their proper rights and liberties and get proper schooling and medical attention. He gave a lifetime to this purpose. He was never paid anything. He never was regained any of his finances, but he died happy. He discovered that he had found a reason for being alive. And wealth as a reason for being alive is a damn failure, no matter how you figure it. It is nothing unless it is used for some great purpose. The legitimacy of wealth is its dedication to the needs of humanity. So everywhere peace, security, integrity will remove stress if we stop allowing selfishness and competition to constantly interfere. There is nothing that the individual has in this world that he's going to take with him but himself. Therefore, he might as well get rid of some of it here, keep what he needs, and start living a better life, not trying to compete for great wealth. The more wealth he competes for, the worse his governments are going to be. The more lands he takes, the more lands will be taken from him. The bigger the banks, the quicker they will fail. All these things in excess are detriments to themselves. Living quietly, peacefully, respectfully, having that which is necessary to live with dignity, but with simplicity, and to devote the mind and heart largely to the advance of wisdom and understanding, and to share the joys of life with those we love and with those who understand us, to work together for a common good. This is the proper duty and the proper labor of the human being. Thank you.
Did he? He has? I guess so.
I think somebody left a flower there for you.
You have milk.
You're all ready to go.
Okay, fine. Oh, isn't that nice? Well, this morning we're going to start with the subject of stress. Now, in matters of stress and tension, we generally assign stress as outside causes, tension as inside causes. In other words, the conditions of the world can cause a lot of stress. Conditions of your private life can result in a great deal of tension. And in all cases, the problems, the dispositions, the sicknesses, unhappinesses are due to the failure of the individual to handle the problems and responsibilities of existence. Actually, no one is doing it perfectly, and no one will for a long time to come. But the condition can be improved so that many persons who are now very unhappy can find a considerable amount of peace and security if they will understand the problems that they face and how to handle them. And stress problems coming from outside, we have hundreds of possible causes. Stress can be political, sociological, economic. It can result from world changes, wars, plagues, earthquakes, tidal waves, and innumerable disasters. Stress can also be fear of external changes that could be unfortunate or fatal to the security of the individual. Stress is always the danger lurking somewhere in the dark, lurching there, waiting to be heard from, waiting to come forth and participate in our affairs. So this morning I want to try to explain a little bit about the matter of stress. This universe that we live in is a perfectly balanced instrument. We will never develop on this planet anything that even resembles what nature has already established. We are in the most miraculous type of existence. We are in an existence that is infallible, inevitable, immutable. We are in an existence that has only one ultimate good, the perfection of all that lives. We can try every means that we know. We can make every mistake consciously or unconsciously. And yet, in the course of time, the inevitable course of our lives is towards the fulfillment of the divine plan. This plan is that all shall survive, that all shall perfect and release the potentials within them, and all shall move forward through the mysteries of cosmic evolution. There is no doubt that for the majority of people, this evolutionary process is adequate. There are a great many who are not worrying about it at all. There are a great many who are not worrying about world affairs, or are not worrying about a job. A great many people just don't worry. They can be impoverished, they can be sick, still they do not worry. There are others who almost always have what they need, but are afraid. Afraid of loss of that which they do not have, the loss of that which they do have, or the coming of something that they do not want, that they might have. So in all these different processes, there is a great interchange of values. Now, how do we determine the basic nature of these values? In the first place, as far as the human being is concerned, he is given an adequate natural defense for nearly anything that can happen to him. This defense is his magnetic field. The magnetic field of the human being, like the shell of the hen's egg, provides all that is necessary for the fulfillment of the purpose for which it is created. The individual's cosmic nature provides him with a sheltering vehicle, a body of energies a magnetic field by means of which that which is wrong is largely avoided and that which is right is strengthened. The magnetic field, of course, depends for its security upon the fact that the person lives in harmony with the laws of his own life. To have a healthy magnetic field, the individual must be mentally, morally, and physically healthy. He must deserve it. He must have built it through understanding and insight, and also through discipline and understanding and the improvement of his inner functions. Yet if he has an inner magnetic body that is reasonably accurate, reasonably sufficient for him, he will find that it will protect him against most of the dangers of the environment. He will not suffer unduly from world changes, because his own inner life has already explained to him why these changes are necessary. The wiser the individual becomes, the less shock and stress there is in life. The less hope there is, the less security. The less fear there is, the more security. And the individual with strong faith has solutions that the unbeliever does not have and cannot have until he changes his own nature. Therefore we say there is a magnetic field, an aura, a kind of cosmic egg in which we live. This has been described by many ancient writers. It was known in the times of Pythagoras and Plato. It was understood that the individual lived in a globe of light, and that this globe of light was his strength in time of trouble. It was something that he could take refuge in, behind, and with. And as long as his own nature was correct, this globe of light was a shield of armament, protecting him against the problems of life. If he was too ambitious, then the magnetic field would not cover all of his ambition. And that would mean that he would be given a lesson in order to learn that he was overdoing something. If he was too afraid, he would be given means of encouraging his development of moral strength. If he was brought up in an ignorant environment, this inner life of his own would help him to turn to study and self-improvement. The purpose of that which is within this auric field is to protect, unfold, and perfect the inner life of the person, that which is within that field and within that body. So part of this physical field is the physical body itself, with all its functions and all its various manifestations. We are gradually learning to appreciate the power of the mind, the power of resolution, the strength of meditation, and all kinds of mystical disciplines to help to perfect and integrate the physical body. We have arts and sciences now to strengthen it. We have diets and methods of preventing unnecessary ailments. We can lengthen its life considerably, because this body is protected by being within the egg, within this field. And in this field, nature has supplied it with a variety of protections that are utterly unbelievable. We have no concept whatever of the defense mechanisms that have been set up within ourselves. Mechanisms that will meet the most incredible emergencies. And they will continue to meet the emergencies until the individual fails from inside. The magnetic field of the human body is never breached, it is betrayed. If it is betrayed from within, then it is helpless. But as long as we defend it in its integrities, it will protect us over the periods of life. Now, in the face of the stress angle, we find that this auric field is a defense against outside things. It is a defense against worries, because it has a large magnetic field of mental energies which will help us to understand, accept, and transmute worries and anxieties. It has emotional courage within it. Therefore, it will help us to survive fear or pain or any of those things which arise in the conflicts of life. There's all kinds of hopes and aspirations in it, because there is room in that field for all hope and all ideal and all dreams that we may ever have. We are loaded with potential at all times. But we dilute this potential by failing to fulfill its needs, by failing to live up to its potential meaning for ourselves. Now we look around us in society as it is today, and we see a human race living very largely on compromises. We find that the human being is not living up to potential. It is not carrying on the work for which it was intended. It is not building a nobler mansion for its soul. It is simply drifting along, hoping for the best, and trying to forget its responsibilities by means of false pleasures and various bad habits. There is no reason, therefore, why this field can work properly with man. It will work with those who are right. Among mystics and those in some religions where idealism is very strong, the mysteries of the psychic life are still strong. The magnetic field of the body is still strong. But there are many areas where we have completely diluted it, where it is not present at all. There is nothing whatever in ourselves to prevent us from taking that drink. There is nothing inside of ourselves that says no and means no when tempted to take narcotics. There is no power within ourselves unless we have disciplined it. And this magnetic field in which we live, upon which we depend so much, is disciplined by our own conduct. It gradually becomes strong enough to meet the emergencies of life. That is the way it was built. It's done on purpose, so that the individual growing up and passing through the various emergencies of life would develop resources sufficient to protect him through all of them. Now, what are some of these resources? Faith is one. Faith is perhaps the most powerful of all. Faith is the conviction that there is a reason for life, and that reason is right, and that the individual can attain security through a practice consistent with integrity. There is no doubt in the world that many people live that way, trying their very best to be their very best. And for them the magnetic field is a very powerful armor. It is what Christian calls the armor of righteousness in the old fable. The individual's virtues are his shields and his bucklers against the sorrows and terrors of the time. The stronger his inner life, the less power the world has to control or defeat him. Now, we may have a tendency to think that to be a victim of the world is highly desirable, because if we surrender to the world, we can have wealth, we can have power and fame, we can do all kinds of things that we want to do, we can nourish the appetites, and we can become a slave to the delinquencies which we have come to regard as symbols of freedom or symbols of maturity. Actually, all these things are fabrications of distorted thinking. The individual who is not keeping the rules will never be kept by the rules, and the individual who breaks the rules will be broken by the rules. So that in every event where the individual compromises his principles in order to gratify his sensory perceptions, he's in trouble. Now, in the course of time, this trouble builds up. We have now, for instance, quite a large population on Earth, and this population is almost all troubled. Nearly every individual has difficulties. He has difficulties as a citizen, as a parent, as husband, wife, child. He has difficulties in work, in education, and he has all kinds of pressures upon him, tempting him to compromise his principles or even cultivate them in a way that will be injurious to himself in time to come. So that the person has all these evidences of unfinished business. And when you multiply this unfinished business process by 6 or 7 billion people, you realize that you have a tremendous strength there. But it is a strength of complete weakness. It is a strength that has no carrying power whatever. It is a strength against which not even one virtuous thought can be destroyed. Actually, no matter what the individual's mistakes are, there may be legion, and there may be legions having them, but this does not interfere with the integrity of a single person or the victory of a single conviction in this world. We have taken it for granted that we are saved in groups, some in groups by the religions we hold, some by groups according to social thoughts, some by political groups, some by atheism, some by almost every type of belief, in which beliefs that form into groups or sects or clans have some particular strength. A clan that is wrong is just as weak as an individual that is wrong. And the faith that is not right will have to be corrected just as surely as though it had never existed. Everywhere, in everything we do, value, realities, and integrities are absolutely imperative. So we find today a great stress in the world. We find people suffering every day from every type of problem you can think of. And we can't help but feel that these poor people are really having a hard time. They are. They're having a very hard time. And for some of them, this hard time is difficult to explain. Only infinite wisdom and its own infinite love can understand it. But there's a great deal of this hard time, probably 9/10 of it, that is easily understandable and obvious and easily recompensed or corrected if we take the proper courses of action. Most people who are wrong know it. They may not admit it, but the individual who is immoral or dishonest is aware of this fact. He is aware of the fact he is breaking rules, but he is not aware of the fact that these rules exist finally to break him. He believes he can get away with it. He sees others get away with it. And on this he builds a philosophy of escape mechanism. He will make the same mistakes that all others make who were carried away to the graveyard and of an expensive funeral. He's going to be one of those who's going to be remembered by a marble monument. He's going to be loved and admired by his friends and sanctified after his death, and if he lives long enough, he'll probably be in public office. All of these things are considered to be the proof that he was right. Now, he may occupy the highest possible office in the world and still be wrong. And he may be the king and emperor of the earth, but he will be in no way able to escape the same laws that guard and guide the development not only of at least of humans, but practically all the lesser kingdoms of nature. He can no more break the laws of life than a rabbit can. And wherever he tries to break the rules settle down quietly to break him. Now, it's a little difficult with the human being because he is more complicated. Therefore, breaking him takes a little time and thought. But nature has the time, and the universe has the thought. Actually, we find that the first mistake he makes it almost necessary to make a second one. He was wrong in the first place, but he got to prove he was right, so he makes a second mistake. Or he gradually adds up one wrongdoing upon another, protectively, defensively. And after a while, he is up to his neck in his own compromises and his own corruptions. And he will go on, and maybe they won't catch him. But now it moves into another field. It moves from the field of the stress symptom, it moves into the pressure symptom within himself. So on his deathbed, he remembers some of these things, finally wishes he was different, and goes out of this world fully aware in his inner life that he's taking with him the unfinished business of years, that he has been wrong from the beginning. And he got out of this world without anyone finding it out, he hopes. But it does not mean that he will not face it forever, or until he cures it himself. In nature, the integrities are absolute. And in human nature, these integrities must likewise be absolute on their own levels possible for the human being to apply. So we have the person who is stress-laden. He has a great deal of stress. He's worried. He has pains here and there. He has made a number of serious mistakes. He has not kept good habits. We find that he is maybe 50, 60 years old. He is a physical wreck. He is a victim of alcohol or tobacco or narcotics or one thing or another. And he is going along on the grounds that those are perfect privileges that he has. If the individual wants to drink a quart of scotch, who can stop him? His common sense can't, and his clergyman probably won't try. But actually, from the beginning, he knows what was wrong. Something inside of himself can never be silenced completely. And on 2 or 3 occasions, I've been present on deathbed scenes that were pretty pathetic. Individuals who, through a lifetime, bluffed it through, allowed never anyone to think there was anything wrong with them, were always right in every decision, were always correct, and looked forward to the ultimate glory of the world to come. When those last hours in this world broke down like little children weeping their house out and crying for mercy. The individual is never unaware of his own mistakes, but he carefully covers these mistakes so that the awareness does not reach him until something happens that takes away most of the reward for the mistake itself. So we have the stress symbol that carries through. We have the stress for wrong ideology. When a person goes into a game like politics, if he goes in with wrong motives from the beginning, the stress from those wrong motives will go with him to the grave. And in one way or another, he will always be wrong. He will always be punished for being wrong. So, in stress, the individual on the outside is tempted. From the inside, he must resist if this temptation is wrong. In stress, he may be in high office, but at the same time be tempted to make a serious compromise of ethics. If he makes a serious compromise, he is then open to the problem of stress. And stress means that that pattern is going to remain until he lives it out, till he corrects it, till he realizes sufficiently that he was wrong to make sure that he never does it again. So we inherit a little kind of protective genius with us when we come into this world. We inherit with us a kind of good fairy, or as they call the gnome, or nature spirit, or genius, as they called them in the ancient times. Everyone is born with a little angel and a little devil with them. There's all kinds of legends about the group spirits and the nature spirits and so forth. And there is the good spirit and there's the bad spirit. And the good spirit is forever luring us forward to do something better. And the bad spirit says, well, heaven won't notice this small mistake if I do make it. There is no escaping any of it. So that is a great handicap. Imagine not being able to get away with your iniquities. Very, very discouraging. The individual who was quite sure that no one would know that he stole the inheritance. No one would ever know it anyway. Somebody would know it, somebody did know it, and that somebody was himself. And someday that self is going to stand up and convict him in the court of universal law. And it's going to convert him for his own good and not to punish him for what he did. It is going to prove to him why he has broken rules that will break him unless he makes the necessary corrections. So we are here to outgrow our own shortcomings. We are here to come to the realization that being in this world is a privilege, that it is an opportunity presented by nature to give us the chance to grow, the chance to increase from a little quiet child like a little hen in the egg coming out of an egg, just to live for a little while. Rather, it gives us a hope of an eternal existence, growing greater and wiser, more loving and more serving, all through the futures that lie ahead. The individual that comes to individuality now, or did so in the past, is going to be an individual from now on. And then as an individual is to be responsible for its own conduct from now on. It is going to be responsible for growth from now on. For it cannot stand still and let the world move by. The individual who stands still and can't change is in one kind of stress, because the world will change and leave him, and the leaving him will leave him in pain. He must therefore meet the changes that do come. There are times when what appears to be a constructive mood or a constructive character should be rewarded. But if it is a birth out of time, if it is wrong in its relationship to its environment, there is still trouble. Therefore, we have a lot of things we have to learn in order to understand these matters. Every individual who wants to improve himself must understand himself. He must understand physiology. He must understand anatomy and medicine. He must understand universal law and astronomy. He must understand art and music. And most of all, he must understand those intimate human relationships which are the basis of home and family and the perpetuation of the species. For this perpetuation is part of the wisdom of the Most High. So we live as an opportunity to grow. And our life is for the purpose of increasing our cooperation with all the laws and principles of existence. We start comparatively humbly, but there is also a great joy simply in the experience of increasing the beauty of life. The individual who works all day long very hard and finally maybe has a little family, and out of this little family comes a baby. And this baby is the first experience of motherhood or fatherhood that this family has known. Up to that time it has always been a struggle of survival. But somehow with this miracle that has occurred, there is a new dimension. And if these people are proper people, if they are reasonable and intelligent people, here will be the beginning of a new life, a life that is fuller and richer and has much more to justify its existence. All the way along, the whole purpose of growth is to unfold painlessly the tremendous internal resource that each one of us has. This internal resource has been built up through hundreds of lives and thousands of parts of space. It has been built up from grains of sand, and it will be built up from comets and constellations. But the whole world is a great garden, and we are all little flowers growing in it, or little seeds in flowers, or little hopes in seeds. We are all here because of infinite growth. If we help that growth, we will be happy growing every day. If we insist, however, that all growth is suspended to serve our selfishness, then we are in real trouble. We are not to be picked upon by a jealous deity, but we are not to be catered to by one that sides for us against truth. We are going to find religion a great help, but we're never going to take a faith that makes it easier for us to live badly. We are never going to follow any philosophy that leads to selfishness or the misuse of resources. We are never going to side with any procedure that is unfair to the stranger and to a person who is of less understanding than ourselves. All of this is to do with the stress factor. So we watch, and on Monday the bills come in, and the bills are a little bigger than we expected to be. There's a worry. But what does this worry do? Does it send us out to borrow money at 10%? There's the trouble there. It might tell us to make our purchases live within our means, and where there is great need and great problem, to get assistance or help wherever possible, with a definite resolve never to gain this added funds by some corrupt means. That we will learn to improve we will go and learn a new trade. We will become skillful in some new work. We will grow to meet our needs, never try to steal our way to security. Everywhere we are, a growth of all kinds is a permanent investment. The individual who takes 2 music lessons will remember that he had 2 music lessons even in an age millions of years in the future. 2 music lessons will never die, because he will always have them. They're a little step in the right direction. But 2 cases of selfishness and foreclosing a mortgage he will also always have, but it will hurt him to the bitter end. All these things mean we've got to clean the slate. We've got to make the slate contain only that which is good. And if it is only that which is good, then little by little the good on that slate will grow, and little by little our state and society will improve accordingly. So all stress has as its purpose the getting the rough edges off of people. The stress means that the person is being tempted. If he falls for the temptation, he has failed it. If he lives through it, he has succeeded. But every day he is tempted again, and every day he must stand strong again. Now this does not mean that these temptations will every day be miserable things. He's not going to wake up every morning with a dismal process to face. But he will find that with the good and the bad, the friendly and the friendless, the helpful and the helpless, every day there will be a little opportunity to be better than he was before. There will be a new gift, a new grace, a new experience of brotherhood, a new expression of human or divine affection. And these will be the crowning moments of that day. In the moment in which the kind word that he gives brings somebody out of sorrow, that is the big moment of that day. That is the part of that day that goes into eternity and becomes part of the tremendous background of pressures and forces which make up life. Now, as all these different case problems come along, if we say no when we should say yes, if we carefully avoid taking on a responsibility, if we don't return the book we borrowed, or anything of that nature, then in some way we have lost something. We've lost an experience of integrity. And life is an experience of integrity. And the more of that we get, the less pain we will ever suffer from space. There will no longer be this terrible worry over stress. The stress is nothing more or less the unfinished business, usually returning to the individual who has already denied the right to receive it. It is the possibility of a person who has not accepted the challenge on some other level. And all these different levels have to be faced. And until the individual accepts the responsibility for the problem he himself created, there will be no end to the constant nagging of circumstance. One of the most common problems that we have in this type of problem is disposition. And dispositions are very difficult things. Now, usually dispositions are internal, so we would put them with stress rather than we would put them with some of the other emotions. But the disposition is there. Now, a person with a bad disposition is going to have trouble always. There will always be tension. There will always be misunderstandings. There will always be antagonisms. The individual who has an enemy is in trouble maybe for 1,000 years till he gets over it. But there's no getting over an enemy without trouble, because the person must make a friend out of that enemy, because they cannot have any enemies in space. In space, there is nothing in the end but love. Everything else is an illusion. So to get that attitude and to experience it means you have to step by step get over the antagonism that you may consider perfectly justifiable. Surely this relative was unkind to you. Surely this married partner cheated you out of your inheritance. Surely your children walked out and left you. All these things are things that happen to us. But the individual who is the victim must in inward life get over that hurt through the mystery of forgiveness. Forgiveness is the individual declaring before his own inner life that he has given up a negative attitude, that he has given up a criticism, and that if whatever happens, if this person who has injured him comes to him for help, he will help generously and immediately and without question. So there we have another. We have people who are in trouble for help and need it. We have neglected people. We have all kinds of individuals who have had their homes broken by maliciousness. We have a great deal of marital infidelity at the present time, which is due to several possible causes, the most common of which is lack of integrity. And in these processes, everyone is satisfied to hope that a new arrangement will be successful. But as long as any marital disabilities go unsolved, they will come back again. And even though it may be many lives, there will be no end to a problem until it is made perfect in the law. And then it has brought its message, and brought it fully, and that message has been generously and completely accepted. Now we go with health problems in the same way. We have health problems for most people. Some people have health problems by inheritance. This means they're bringing it forward from some previous time. There may be others that are having it now. There are others that seem to be getting away with it now, but will have it later. The health problems are all of some one kind. They all represent the struggle between the individual and the rules of the body in which he lives. The first detail and duty of the person in the body is to protect that body, to give it all it needs, to give it only what it needs, to secure it in every way possible, but never burden it with the attitudes and responsibilities of false thinking. It is like a political situation. The mayor of the city is the person in the body. The mayor of the city wants to use the body to advance his political purposes and have a good time. That's that. Then there will be corruption in the city. And where the individual uses the body merely to gratify his sensory perceptions, there will be corruptions in the body. Everything is either right or wrong. There's no halfway measures that are almost right or almost wrong. There's always the struggle of the right to succeed and the definite determination of the individual to try to get away with the wrong. And he never gets away with it. And all around us every day are the sorrows of these problems. We look around us today in the world, look at the conditions of society. There's hardly a day goes by when we don't have another war. These wars are strife over political issues. All of these wars go back to selfishness. All go back to stupidity, avarice. All go back to the misuse of power and definite efforts of individuals to destroy the rights and privileges of other human beings. Enslavement. Now, enslavement may be a little thing and it may be a big thing. Enslavement may be underpaying the one man who works for you. Enslavement may be the captivity of a nation or a continent. But all these things are wrong, and where they are wrong, they must succeed. They must exceed the power of right. And where they are excessive, they must fail. The time must come for the truth to come out. All slavery must end. All tyranny must end. And the use of the privileges of state, or of the clergy, or of the professions, to exploit the poor, all these things must end. The use of all profit problems are very definitely indicated. The stress arising from financial investments and misinvestments, this is very definite at the present time. And nearly all of it is dishonorable in some way. Unreasonable salaries are dishonorable. That one should be rich and another poor, of equal abilities, simply through opportunity or through some exterior privileges. This is wrong. The rights of the poor and the rights of the rich are equal. Each one must do that which is proper. Those who want more must be able to earn more, because they can earn it. There should be no limit upon earning, but there should be all kinds of limitation upon stealing. Wherever an effort is made to accumulate wealth by false means, you have corruption starting that can go down long enough to destroy an empire. But if it is done properly and each individual works successfully and honestly for that which he believes to be necessary, you will have no more labor revolutions. Everywhere it is the same thing. We have a false motivation, and that principal false motivation is profit. And as long as the motivation of profit is dominant, we're going to have sin, corruption, and death in the world. The corruption of arts and sciences, the corruption of theater, the corruption of music, all of these things trouble us gravely. In a very few years, television has deteriorated into something unbelievably poor. It has ceased to have any meaning except the meaning of profit. And it has also helped to drag down the moral level of millions of people. Well, it will go on. But nature is there. Nature is there constantly working, constantly handing out the records and records that are necessary to even these things out. And in one of these days, we're going to see what happens when a useful discovery is abused, as we've done with television. We are now on the verge of doing the same thing with computers. We're going to use everything wrong until we learn to use it right. And everything that is used right is used for the common good. And everything that is used wrong is used for private profit. Private profit is only good to the degree that it makes possible for all to share in a reasonable degree of participation. And in building a career, young people growing up, why should we send them to school? Why should we spend $180,000 to send a child to university? Why should we be forced to do all these things in this way, when in reality there seems to be no profit in it? These overeducated people, then we say to ourselves, why are they overestimated and overeducated? Well, one of the things in education that is certainly truthful and obvious is the complete lack of idealism. Now, idealism is built into the fabric of reality from the day that the worlds were formed. The very sky itself is drops of idealism falling like rain upon the place beneath. It is a marvelous realization that in the universe there is nothing but lawful love and mutual service, that all good things will be fulfilled because they are of the nature of fulfillment, and creation is of the nature of fulfillment. The creation is not a struggle forever as to who can control what. Creation is a process by which all learn to control themselves, and in so doing share in the common good. So we have this problem: no beliefs, no ideals, no hopes. And we have people who try to teach us that we should not have ideals because they are expensive. We shouldn't believe in honesty because it'll keep us from being rich. But what we don't realize is believing in dishonesty will make us poor forever in this world and any place we go from here. There is no answer to anything that is corrupt. Religion is an essential part of life. It is essential for the individual to believe in something greater than himself, and in that belief realize that he has been empowered to grow and share that greatness with the greatness which is forever. And we have all kinds of different things: sick people, medicine, education, all these things. A world of people now trying to get along without the principles of integrity, trying to get along without realization of the truth upon which all civilizations must rest. If we look back upon the peoples of the past, we look back upon the Roman Empire of Greece, of India, China, Persia, even upon the empires of our Western Hemisphere, we realize that integrity was the foundation of security. And as integrities failed, the securities failed. And that one by one, the civilized nations have died from their own so-called civilization, which was nothing but a corruption of idealism. All civilizations were to be interpreted as ways of getting rich off of somebody else, when actually the real reason for civilizations is it is the privilege of each group to contribute to the growth and well-being of those around it. Civilizations should build more civilizations and not end in empires and corruption. Now also in health, a little more details of health. We have stressed health at this time. I think one of the reasons that we can think about it is that we're all more or less health conscious. We want to have a better physical existence and to live as well as we can while we are here. Therefore, health means that we must cater to the rules of this thing which we call the body of energies around us. The body of energy, the aura, the magnetic field. This is the place where all these organs are. Within the magnetic field are all the vital organs of the body, all the endocrine and glandular structures of the body, all of the nervous systems, the muscular systems, all of the processes of mentation and propagation are all within this magnetic field. Magnetic field has to be properly controlled. It has to have proper energy moving into it constantly. That is not possible if you turn this field into a playground for narcotic addiction. One by one the individual kills off the very powers of himself. And it's not going to be so pleasant for the individual who maintains his physical structure but commits suicide to his magnetic field. He's going to find that he has destroyed something far greater than he could possibly gain. But as long as there is in him the realization that he shouldn't do it, that he must try to correct the condition, that he must discipline his nature, as long as the dream is still there, he has a good chance of fulfilling it. Once he gives in, however, he is out of the race for the moment. He'll be back, but he will have to come back and suffer for the things that he did that were so frightfully wrong to other people. We look around us in all departments of life. We find constant exploitation, constant selfishness, and constant misunderstanding. All these things have to do with the creation of stress. There will not be any stress that we can't handle if we are willing to be honest. And if something is too big for us, this is not necessarily the source of stress. There is always some way of adjusting to what we understand of it and growing. And it's very good to have something in front of us that is bigger than we are now. And we got to get back again to the guild system that was one of the great protections against stress. To protect an individual who is in an economic problem from turning to dishonesty is to give him a second string on his own bow. If an individual is in a certain business profession and that profession is no longer existing, or it is overstocked with people, or he cannot get a job, then he is either unemployed or it becomes an object of charity. The ancient system of management was that every individual had to have 2 or more diversified areas of activity so that no matter what happened, he had a job. Martin Luther made clocks, but if they didn't make clocks anymore, he had something else he could do. And Louis XVI of France, he had something else to do. As a king, he was a failure and died on the guillotine. But the night before he died, he corrected all the clocks in the Bastille. He died usefully occupied. Now there are many people who have narrowed the areas of their activities until it then happens to their specialty, to that job that is all important to them. They're lost. They're lost, their economics falls to pieces, their homes are lost, their business associates don't speak to them anymore, their children can't finish their education. All is terrible. The only answer to that is a diversification of activities, and it is also the only basis upon which mental health can be preserved. The individual who has 2 cooperating areas of industrial activity is comparatively healthy. If something happens to one, he's got something to fall back on. And at the same time, he has enlarged his own understanding and his own insight, and no longer believes that the world is made up of nothing but bookkeepers. All these things are things that he has to think about. Now, stress is therefore the determination on the part of the individual to get rid of these balky things that cause this tension and cause these difficulties every day. To get rid of the pain of the relationship between self and nature. To get rid of the pain of the way you live. Get rid of the pain of your neighbors, your relatives, your friends, your enemies. And put it all together into one constructive attitude that we live in a planet in which all things, regardless of what we feel about it, are united by a common brotherhood. Where there is a brotherhood between man and beast. There is brotherhood between birds and animals. There is brotherhood between the various plants of the field. Everything in its own right, like the plants in the field, grow and fulfill their purpose. And if these human beings grow to fulfill their purpose and are happy in doing it, there will be no stress. And as a result of that, there will be no tension, which will cause difficulties. If we can get a better relationship between ourselves and the world around us, then we can approach the second problem. Namely, we can have a better relationship between what are the internal parts of our own psychic integration. We can take the magnetic field and study the inside of it and all the things that are there that are important. But before we can really take it on, intelligently and control it rightly, we must realize that in the larger adjustment of life, that this magnetic field is correct, that we have given it a start which is normal, that we have fed it correctly, that we have educated it correctly, we have dedicated it correctly, and therefore with these achievements we can then begin to study what it gives into it, what comes from that which is of importance to us, how it will help us also to be much more successful in the various works of life. We've got to constantly go along, always improving quality. We've got to be a little unselfish one day and a little more unselfish the next. And all the temptations to step aside from these gentle growths are false, and if followed will lead to nothing but misery. All nations have tried it. All civilizations have tried it. Nearly all families have tried it. And all have come to the final conclusion that the only way they could be protected is to realize that if you keep the rules will keep you. And if you will do what nature intends with all the parts and elements of your own composite nature, there will arise out of this composite being of yourself the divine soul or the overself, which will prepare us for eternal citizenship in the universe of realities. There is always this problem, but these problems are stimulation in a sense. If instead of being irritated by something we don't know, we're stimulated by it to find out what we don't know. If we are caused to be irritated by something that someone says, how about being big enough to realize that they may need the experience, they did the best they could perhaps, not right. Maybe you can help them. If you can't help them, you can thank them and let them know that you appreciate their efforts. Everywhere you can turn this rough edge of conflict. And one of the problems we all have today is conflict. There's hardly anyone doing anything in which they are not being opposed by someone. There is jealousy in every field. There is more or less competition even in the closest family. Therefore it is necessary to bridge all these differences, unite all these conflicts under a gentle, kindly, religious understanding. That when anything comes along, that we realize that it's our right, our privilege, and our duty to do all that we can to keep the peace. And if we can keep the peace in the world will keep the peace inside of us that we need so badly. Now we all know these things in principle. We all know that tomorrow there will be more temptations to break the rules. But we also know that in the long run, the whole world must do what it was intended to do. It must unite to the glory of God and the service of mankind. This universe was created by a divine purpose. It was created for a divine purpose. It was created to enable a vast order of living things to grow and mature and prepare to become citizens of space. Well, we are the citizens of tomorrow, for worlds that go beyond the galaxies. There is a great eternal life going on, a life eternal which begins in deity and ends in deity, and in the middle distances is filled with useful relations and affections and mutual regards of love and fellowship for all of us. Thank you.